Welcome back to the Johnny Klein Experience, where we discuss and break down movies. If you love movies, you have come to the right spot. We have a really good show today. We're going to be talking some Adam Driver, a.k.a. Kylo Daddy news. We are going to be talking Tron Ares, George Lucas, Black Phone 2 box office performance. So just sit back, relax, and we're going to get on into it. First topic, Adam Driver says Disney shot down Ben Solo Star Wars sequel film despite Lucasfilm saying they loved the idea. It goes on to say, and this comes to us from Deadline, Adam Driver was not done with the Star Wars universe and pitched Lucasfilm and Disney a spinoff that would have been a direct sequel to 29's The Rise of Skywalker. Which is fascinating because I thought that Adam Driver didn't like the Star Wars universe too much. But anyway, Driver took on the role of Ben Solo for the Star Wars sequel trilogy, playing the son of Han Solo, R.I.P., and Leia Organa, and the grandson of Anakin Skywalker, best known as Darth Vader. As you may know, Ben Solo turns into the villain Kylo Ren, who has a redemption arc and apparently dies at the end of The Rise of Skywalker. However, Driver felt his character had unfinished business and thought of an idea for a sequel film. I always was interested in doing another Star Wars, Driver said in an interview with AP. I'd been talking about doing another one since 2021. Kathleen Kennedy had reached out, and I always said, with a great director and a great story, I'd be there in a second. I love the character, and I love playing him. Driver detailed a concept for the film, which Steven Soderbergh wrote a script for, which the actor says was one of the coolest bleeping scripts I had ever been a part of. We presented this script to Lucasfilm. They loved the idea. They totally understood our angle and why we were doing it. Driver said. We took it to Bob Iger, who is the head of Disney, and Alan Bergman, and they said no. They didn't see how Ben Solo was alive, and neither did I. And that was that. The film was tentatively titled The Hunt for Ben Solo, with Driver adding, but it is no more, so I can finally talk about it. In a statement to AP, Soderbergh said, I really enjoyed making the movie in my head. I'm just sorry for the fans who won't get to see it. The Star Wars universe is not short on films with multiple projects in the pipeline. But they are short on good films in the pipeline. The next film to be released is The Mandalorian and Grogu, a spin-off of the Disney Plus series. Yada, yada, yada. So, anyway, this is huge news. There's not a lot that goes on in the Star Wars universe these days that gets me excited. This got me all sorts of excited. I mean, okay, so were the sequels perfect movies? No. Was Kylo the best character ever? / Ben Solo? No. But I did like him a lot. And I liked Daisy Ridley a lot too as Rey. I know a lot of people don't, but I do. So I don't hate the sequels as much as everybody else. I also think that the sequels are going to age a lot better in time. But the best part of the sequels, without a doubt, in my opinion, was Adam Driver as Kylo Ren, Ben Solo. And the fact that they got Steven Soderbergh to not just write like some sort of outline, but a full-fledged script. I mean, that's huge. Number one, I'd love to get my hands on that script. Like, I'd love to read that thing and see what that's all about. And then also the fact that Adam Driver called it one of the best bleeping scripts he's ever read. And Adam Driver's like, in an interview, he's a pretty straight shooter, right? Like, if he doesn't believe something, he's not. For instance, when The Last Jedi was coming out, like, he in interviews, you could tell, he didn't love it too much. Like, he's not very good at hiding his emotions. So, anyway, I think that it probably would have been a really cool story. And, so when I read this, I was wondering, he's probably under like NDAs with this kind of stuff. Like, usually they are. Also, sorry for my girly cup. Actually, not sorry. It's from my church. Shout out Battle Creek. But when I read this, I was thinking, okay, he's under an NDA. How is he talking about this? But then I thought back to 2014. What happened in 2014? Well, Ryan Reynolds happened in 2014 with his Deadpool script. So or not his Deadpool script, but his Deadpool teaser. So if you remember back in 2014, randomly online, sweet looking like teaser concept for Deadpool just dropped out of the blue. And I think it was like even all CGI. But then anyway, the internet went berserk and was like, no, this is the coolest thing ever. We got to get Deadpool made. And like, it was a really good teaser that they had made, but like no one like knew who had dropped it. But within 48 hours, Fox, who owned Deadpool, they had greenlit it. And like, so it went years and years of years. I think it was like 10 years of Ryan Reynolds to try to get this thing greenlit. And then couldn't do it. And then in 2014, they decided to just like leak the trailer. And they say they don't know who did it, but I'm pretty sure it's Ryan Reynolds. And then next thing you know, within 48 hours, the son of a gun got greenlit. So like, who knows? The thought in my head is Adam Driver pulling a Ryan Reynolds here, and you know, saying like, oh, it's over, because he does say in the article that he feels like he can talk about it now, since he's just sorry that the fans won't get to see it. But does he actually truly believe it's over, or is he maybe feeling like, hey, this thing could still get made if we get some like, you know, good reaction and good excitement behind it? Also, they had that Daisy Ray like spinoff movie, I think it was, with the random director lady that I don't know who she is. I think it was going to be a movie. I don't think it was going to be a show. But another thought is, could this kind of tie in together? Could this be in the Daisy Ridley movie / show? Could this be part of the story, as her like going to find Ben or Kylo? Now, you know, obviously I have no idea how they would like pull this off, how they'd get it done. I mean, you know, there's the worlds between worlds, I think is what they called it, that like showed up in Rebels, and then I think it was in Ahsoka. So I don't imagine that they would just go into there and it would be something, because I don't think that would be that good. I think somehow through the Force, you know, nobody really understands, I don't think, like the whole rules of the Force. Like everyone's just making up as they go. I mean, obviously George Lucas does, but even he kind of made it up as he went. So I don't know how he'd come back, but either way, I'm down, right? Like, did he die at the end of Rise of Skywalker? Yes. Did it seem definitive? Yes. But again, I think that this would be really cool. And what's interesting about this is that Kathleen Kennedy, she wasn't the one that said no to this. You know, we've, as the fans and as a fandom, and you know, myself, I've given her plenty of crap just because I think that the choices that they've made in Disney haven't been the best. And you know, I'm not fully sure how she's still, you know, the president there, or of Lucasfilm. But, you know, this whole time the fandom has been given Kathleen Kennedy. And by the way, I think she's a phenomenal producer. I think if you look at her history, her credits, I think she's probably the best producer of all time. And I think she seems like a really nice lady. So not to knock on her too much. But we've been giving her, you know, crap for all these years about not getting stories done and greenlighting them. But, you know, in the article, it's clearly saying that it's Bob Iger and Alan Bergman, I think is his name, that said no to this. Like, she had said yes. Like, Lucasfilm they greenlit it to themselves, but the president and Alan Bergman, who I'm not sure who that is, they said no. So maybe Kathleen Kennedy hasn't been as bad as we thought she was this whole time. Maybe she's actually one of the good guys. Maybe she's one of us, you know. So anyway, it's fascinating. Now, with that being said, there's been so many of these projects. So even if it did get like greenlit and to go into production, I mean, how many Star Wars movies have we had that? And I'll turn this on. How many Star Wars movies / projects have we had that were in development with like really cool directors, really cool, screenwriters that then just like went bye-bye. They just like went out of development for creative differences. I mean, that's happened so many times. It happened with Rogue Squadron, what's her name? Patty Jenkins. Happened with James Mangold. Well, we don't know. His thing is still like in development, exploring like the early, parts of the Jedi and exploring that. But who knows? My guess is that might not be happening anymore. It happened with like a Damon Lindelof project. Again, they always say like due to creative differences. The Spider-Verse, dudes. I'm pretty sure they were originally doing the Han Solo film. They left due to creative differences. And there's just been like a handful of them. I think there was the Daniels maybe were doing something as well. So they keep like getting our hopes up with like these cool directors, cool screenwriters that, you know, have a great history. And then they sort of like destroy all of our hopes and dreams because they, you know, it stops production due to creative differences. I do think that like Rogue Squadron probably is going to like be in Sean Levy's Starfighter movie, like elements of it. That would be my guess. So it's super fascinating. Now, a couple years ago, I can't remember the account name, but on YouTube, they came out with a fan film, and it was called, you guessed it, The Hunt for Ben Solo. And it was like a trailer that they dropped, and it was an incredibly good trailer. And I actually want to watch it right here on the stream because it's so freaking good, and it just gets me hyped. All right, so screen share. Okay. So this came out, again, 2 years ago. It's called The Hunt for Ben Solo. You know, I guess Adam Driver was just at home, saw it, got inspired, and this is what started it. Ray Skywalker.
Everything you need.
Say it right.
No one's ever really gone.
Like, I just love the tone of this, like the vibes.
It's too dangerous, Finn. I need to go alone.
Luke.
I think that's from that movie 47 or something that he did.
Generations living you now.
Come on.
What is it? What about him?
He's alive.
Heck yeah, he is. Come on. Like, that music's good.
Run!
Uh-oh.
Just breathe.
Just breathe. Come on. Yes and amen. There you go. I mean, look, I don't really even know what it's about, but it gets me going. I mean, that I love me a good trailer, and that trailer again. I don't know how they would do it, but a quest to where like Rey, Ben have to go find Ben Solo wherever he's at, World Between Worlds, or you know somehow the Force brought him back in a different form. I don't know, but I just think it'd be sick. So anyway, let's go over to Twitter and see what the people have to say. As always, okay. So let's see. Bag Chaser says Disney. Also, I have to be really descriptive for like the Spotify audio listeners. Disney or Bag Chaser says Disney. We don't know how to bring Ben Solo back. Also, Disney. Somehow Palpatine returned. Honestly, they could just do that. It'd be like, like Finn like asked Rey, like, what do you mean he's alive? And then she could just say, I don't know. Somehow he returned. We got to go find him. They've done it before. Moses says Disney rejecting a Steven Soderbergh directed Star Wars film because they didn't see how Ben Solo was alive is peak irony, and this is the same studio that brought back Palpatine with zero explanation. The somehow Palpatine return meme, just they crack me up. When I saw it at theaters, I honestly didn't think twice about it. I was like, oh yeah, somehow he returned. But then later, as you realize, you're like, oh my gosh, that was the lamest writing. Steven Soderbergh not just directed, he did a full-on screenplay, not just like an outline. Like he got a screenplay done. I would love to read that. The Gambit says, seriously, it's simple. He and Rey are a dyad in the Force. So long as Rey is alive, he is alive. That took me 2 seconds. And when in doubt, you can always somehow Ben Solo return. Major fumble by Disney here. Star Wars. Yeah, but he did die. Like, the dyad or the dyad, however you say it. At the end of the day, we saw him die. So I'm not sure how you could do that. But worst case, like you said, Gambit, somehow Ben Solo returned would work. Here's the thing is, everyone seems very happy or excited about the idea of this show. When I first heard of it, I was like, oh, everyone's going to hate that idea because everyone's been so critical on the sequels, which again, I've done my fair share. They're not perfect, but I do like them more than the average person. I think overall they're well-made movies, and I think they'll age better in time. But it's just surprising me that people are really upset that they didn't make it. It's almost going to prove/show that no matter what, this Disney or the Star Wars fandom, it's just impossible to make them happy. I can't remember the last time they were I guess Andor, most of them were happy. Other than that, though, Force Awakens, Rogue One, most people liked, and Force Awakens. Owen says he's literally the descendant of Skywalker, and they're wondering how he's still alive. Yep, don't get it. Don't know what your point is. Ethan, you have an actor like Adam Driver, this passionate about his own character, working with a director like Steven Soderbergh, and you say no. I know, dude, that would have been interesting. I am curious the tone. Steven Soderbergh did Ocean's movies. So maybe it's Adam Driver's, I don't know, he's somewhere in a dungeon and they gotta do a heist movie to get him back or something. So let's see, just a couple more here. Yes, let's turn down a movie concept for possibly the most popular sequel trilogy character for a Mando and Grogu movie. Yeah, I'm not excited for the Mando and Grogu movie at all. Yay All Day says they let Palpatine get zapped down the death tube and live. Boba Fett made out the creature pit. Darth Maul survived being cut in half, and Leia didn't die after getting blasted into the vacuum of space. But this is where they draw the line. Yeah, it's a pretty good point. It is. I hear you. Yay All Day, I hear you. So anyway, it sounds like a lot of people are really excited about this idea and I guess really mad at the same time because it's not actually getting made. So anyway, what are your guys' thoughts? Would you guys have liked to see this, or do you think that it would have been a flop and Disney is wise to not do this? Let me know your thoughts below in the comments/chat, and we are going to move on to the next topic. Well, it's not good news for Tron, and not really good news just in the box office in general. This comes to us from Deadline. It says, how Tron Ares ran off the grid. Disney sci-fi movie set to lose $132 million. Thought one battle after another was bad. So it goes on to say, there's more bleeding red neon than imagined coming out of Disney's Tron Ares. Deadline has learned from sources that the third chapter in the 43-year-old video game Matrix protagonist story actually cost $220 million net, not the reported $170 million to $180 million that was being floated out there. Yeah, I mean, I think I talked about that on last week's episode, is that it was 170. So it's actually $220 million pre-marketing, promo, and advertising expenses. This means that Jared Leto, Greta Lee, Jeff Bridges' Lifecycle movie is headed for a $132.7 million loss after all ancillaries. That is if its final global gross smacks dead into a wall at $160 million. the Joachim Rennig directed movie, I don't know how to say it, counted through its second weekend as of Sunday, a running worldwide cum of 103 million with a 67% second weekend domestic plummet of 11.1 million. Yeah, 67% second weekend. Not great. I'm pretty sure that's like kind of how the Marvels was. I think their number was around 67, 68 as well. And if you're close to the same drop off as Marvels, not good. So then it goes on to say, at $160 million box office threshold, Tron Ares triggers $72.2 million in worldwide theatrical rentals, $37.6 million in global home entertainment, close to $100 million in global. Oh, and with an extra $5 million from airlines for a total of $214.8 million in revenues. Put this up against the $220 million net production cost, and then $102.5 million global P&A spend, with stunts at San Diego Comic-Con, touring light cycles, Laser Light, Nine Inch Nails concert at Los Angeles premiere that closed down Hollywood Boulevard, 10.8, and other costs of 14.2 million. Sorry, this is a lot of numbers in residentials or in residuals, which gets you to a total cost of $347.5 million, and that gets us to $132.7 million in loss. So then it goes on to say, exclaimed one astute talent rep on why it was game over for Tron Ares at the October box office. There was no specific vision, to be honest. The idea that Disney would spend $250 million on a Jared Leto film, that is franchise that hasn't worked in 4 decades, is insane. Let's see, was there something else in here that I found? So anyway, it goes on to say that Tron Ares has the same cinema score as Tron Legacy, which is a B+, which is, that's pretty good. It's not too bad. So then, yeah, that's basically it out of all the interesting stuff that I found with it. So I guess, again, this goes back. I don't want to keep harping on it because I talked about this a lot last week, but we're just spending so much money on these movies. Is Tron, we've talked about many times, like IP, and IP is the future, and Tron technically is like IP. The thing about it though is you're spending, what was it, 300 and something million total on marketing and advertising and production costs, and this is with, yes, it's IP. Yes, Tron is popular, but it's still kind of got a cult following. Like, the average kid isn't just like dressing up as Tron for Halloween. Like, it's not as well known for the younger generations. And it's big, but it's not Star Wars level. It's not Harry Potter. It's not Lord of the Rings. So spending that much money is pretty ludicrous, to be quite frank. So again, they're gonna have to start scaling back these budgets because that's just getting wild. Now, I read this somewhere. I can't remember if it was in this article or if it was somewhere else, but an insider had come forward and said that basically they didn't really care if Tron made money or not. And the reason why is because this was all, they saw this all as a marketing campaign for their Disney parks, because they have Tron rides. And I think I read that they opened one in like Shanghai or something. And so their whole idea is to get people amped about Tron in some way or another, and that this will help, boost sales because the Tron ride is at Disney. Which Tron ride is one of the best, rides at Disney. I mean, it's absolutely insane. I love it. So I guess I get that, but that's like the most expensive advertising campaign. Like if that was your idea, then that's that. If you're the marketing exec that thought that, then no. I mean, yes, it could be a nice addition, but again, you can't lose $100 and some million on this and call it a success. And in the beginning, I heard that Tron, I haven't seen it, want to see it, but I heard that it wasn't very good. Like in the beginning, that was kind of the sentiment of, oh, this kind of sucks. And then the average viewer started to go see it, because in the beginning, it's just like the diehard cult fans, and which is not really me. Like, I like it, but I'm not like a diehard cult fan. And so a lot of those diehard cult fans were saying, it's not good, it sucks, blah, blah, blah. And then once the like average moviegoer started going, then I feel like I've heard a lot better reviews about it. I feel like now the sentiment has kind of turned, and now it's, people are starting to like it. I mean, a B+ cinema score. I mean, it's pretty dang good. So I think, I guess now I'm just curious on the future of Tron. Like, where is it going? Because, it is like still good IP, but it's not good enough to be able to spend that much money. But then the nature of what Tron is, the budgets have to be expensive. Like, you're literally in a computer. So it's going to be hard to make Tron not expensive if you're doing live action. And so, a thought that I brought up last week that I still think is a feature for Tron is animation. Like, I think that it needs to be an animated movie, animated show, animated limited series, whatever you want to call it, and put it on Disney Plus. Don't go too crazy with it. You don't have to give it Spider-Verse budgets or anything like that, but just do a low to mid budget Tron animated series. Get some kids into it again, boost up that IP, and then maybe in 5 to 10 years when those kids are older, you do another live action, try it again, and see if it helps. That's my thoughts. I don't think that there really is much of a future for Tron right now in live action. But anyway. What do you guys think? Do you think that there is a future for Tron with live action here in the next 5 to 10 years? Or do you think that Tron, just put its last nail in the coffin? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below /chat. And we're going to move on to our next topic. I know I've been talking a lot about the box office and how it's performing terribly, but not for all genres and not for Black Phone 2. This comes to us from Hollywood Reporter. It says box office Black Phone 2 dials it in for Blumhouse with $27.3 million US opening and $43 million globally. It's really good, by the way. It says Blumhouse is back in action. Scott Derrickson's Black Phone 2 delivered horror maestro Jason Blum a major win in opening to a terrifyingly, I don't know if I've ever said that word, great $27.3 million from 3,411 theaters domestically and $15.5 million from 72 markets overseas for a global start of $42.8 million against a relatively modest $30 million production budget, according to final weekend numbers. The Pics debut follows a string of misses for the Universal-based banner, culminating with the pricey flop of Megan 2.0 earlier this year. And with Sunday traffic coming in ahead of modeling, Black Phone 2's official opening tally was even higher than an estimated $26.5 million domestically, which was already better than expected and ahead of the first film. So that's pretty crazy. I mean, they did a $30 million budget, and they're already at $42.8 million worldwide. And so, they probably also spent 50% to maybe 75% of their budget on marketing and promo. So, 30, let's say, maybe they spent 50 million total. So this looks like it's definitely going to be profitable. Goes on to say the sequel returns Ethan Hawke as a serial killer known as Grabber and Mason Thames as Finn. In the follow-up, the sinister killer seeks vengeance on Finn from beyond the grave by menacing his younger sister Gwen, who is played by Madeline McGraw. Heading into the weekend, Universal had the movie's debut at 18 million, but pre-release tracking turned out to be right in predicting that the R-rated sequel would come in ahead of the first film, Black Phone, the first one, opening in 2021 when cinemas were first recovering from COVID-19. Started off with 23.6 million in North America on its way to turning into a sleeper hit, amassing more than 161 million in worldwide ticket sales. That was before horror fatigue struck at the box office, not adjusted for inflation. So, I mean, this... let me get the camera back. This seems like, it's really good news for Black Phone 2 and the horror genre in general. I don't really love horror movies. Signs, like M. Night Shyamalan, he's about the only guy like in the scary realm that I'll watch because I just don't really like him. Scare me. I'm a little bit of a baby. And so I haven't seen the first Black Phone. I haven't seen the second one. Probably not going to see either one of them. But the horror genre is interesting because I feel like the horror genre and then faith-based genre, which is like two separate ends of the spectrum, are kind of like the only two genres that more often than not see success and profitability in this industry. And I don't really know why that is. I think it's probably because they have like a built-in, like they're very niche, and so they have like a built-in, not cult following, but like following that of people that are like always going to go see it. So whenever you can make your movie for, $30 million or less, like a lot of these faith-based movies, not The Passion of the Christ because those are expensive, but other ones are like, $15-20 million. It's like you can make that back pretty consistently if you have like a built-in audience like they do in faith-based and horror genre. So, if the legs are strong, which I assume it will be, it looks like they're going to be profitable. And so, my main thoughts with this is that this is how Hollywood needs to do it. We've been talking about one battle after another, spending, $130 million, and just, having this budget that is just ballooning. And then, they spent another, 70, 80, 90 on marketing. And then they're not reaching profitability. And so therefore they don't reach profitability. So they don't get any sequels made. Where Black Phone 2, I don't know what the budget was of the first one, but it's probably around this or a little bit less. It gets a low, like a decent budget, but still like low, makes profitability, and then they're able to get a second one, and then it just does the same thing, and then who knows how this one ends, but probably could do a third one, probably could do a fourth one, probably could do a fifth one, just like the John Wick movies did, and then you start to scale up your budget. So that's where I think the industry needs to take lots of notes from what they're doing in this horror genre, with starting with lower budgets and then working their way up. Not that, and I'll turn this back on, not that I was sharing it, but not that, obviously, like some movies, like, superhero movies, intense action movies, at times the budget is just going to be higher because of the nature of the film. But like we talked about with One Battle After Another, if John Wick is, making a movie for $20-30 million, One Battle After Another should not be $130 million. That's just crazy. So yeah, let's head into Twitter and see what the people have to say about it. Okay. That's a scary picture, dude. See, like, this is why I can't watch these movies, because even just like looking at this freaks me the frick out. And you can see the eyes behind the mask. Dude, I'm such a baby. Palumi says, no words but absolute cinema. Arctic Ghost says they did an excellent job on this movie. Very impressed and happy to see a good horror movie succeed. The Grabber might just be a new horror icon on the rise. I mean, it's a pretty recognizable look, so I could totally see that. Suarez says nothing scarier than a sequel that exists just because the first one made money. Yeah, I guess. I mean, there's definitely things scarier. This picture up here is probably scarier. George Ramirez says, would be cool if the third has more of a backstory, how Wild Bill obtained the mask, became the Grabber, maybe end it as a trilogy. Nice little trilogy. That would be good. Wow, what a cook, says Mobby. Play Night says first one scared people, second one just scares wallets. That's probably true. It's getting expensive out there at the theaters. Flocker says crazy how the phone got a better sequel. They probably meant Black Phone. Crazy how Black Phone got a better sequel than most Marvel heroes. True, but there's been some banger Marvel sequels out there, by the way. Spider-Man 2, Sam Raimi. It's hard to beat. Draco says deserves everything. The sequel is absolutely fantastic. Pablo says it worth the watch. Anyone? Black Phone 3 about to go crazy. Planite says nothing kills suspense faster than a horror sequel made for a spreadsheet. So I've seen a lot of this online. The reviews and reactions to this seem very like split. Like I feel like I see some people saying it's amazing, some people saying that it sucks and they just made a sequel for the heck of it because they wanted to make money. But I mean, if a studio can make money, I'm all for it because they need to make money where they can because they've been struggling to do so. So anyway, that's my thoughts on it. That's the people's thoughts. So what are your guys' thoughts? Have you guys seen Black Phone 2? If so, did you like it? And are you hoping that they make a third one? Let me know your thoughts in the comments/chat. And we are going to move on to the next topic. All right, this comes to us from IGN. I've been getting a lot of Star Wars news recently. There was another topic that I was going to talk about, but I figured 3 is too much. So we're just going to talk about this. So George Lucas, one of my favorite directors of all time and just dudes of all time, though he just really focuses on Star Wars. Some big news came out with him this week. He's making his museum and building it right now. And he's made some comments, stirred up some controversy, and we're going to dig into it. It says Disney took it over and they gave it their vision. That's what happens, George Lucas says. He's moved past his instinct to manage Star Wars 13 years after selling up. George Lucas has said, and this comes to us from IGN, I can't remember if I said that. George Lucas has said he's let go of his instinct to manage Star Wars 13 years after selling the sci-fi universe to Disney. Lucas, now 81, sold Lucasfilm to Disney for $4 billion back in 2012, handing over everything from Industrial Light and Magic to Skywalker Sound as part of the deal. Since then, Disney has released the sequel trilogy and a number of TV shows set in the Star Wars universe, including The Mandalorian, Andor, and Ahsoka. Now he's, George Lucas, opening a museum he spent nearly $1 billion putting together. That's just a lot of money. People just have a lot of money. The Lucas Museum of Narrative Art is set to open in Los Angeles in 2026 and showcase a collection Lucas has been working on for 60 years. It's a departure from his filmmaking roots and based on a profile piece in the Wall Street Journal. Lucas is keen for not to be dubbed the Star Wars Museum. That would be. I wish it was honestly just a Star Wars museum. That'd be so cool. While it does have likes of an N1 starfighter, sick, that debuted in 1999's, the Phantom Menace only one inaugural exhibit will feature the designs of Star Wars vehicles. It's one gallery out of 33, and I did it grudgingly. Lucas said, "I didn't want people to come to the museum and say, 'Where's the Star Wars?'" Dude. It's Star Wars. It's like one of the greatest pieces of culture ever, pop culture at least. And you made it. You should be proud of it. I get that you don't want it to just be Star Wars, but dude, don't run from your destiny, George Lucas. The Wall Street Journal then asked Lucas if he has let go of his instinct to manage the Star Wars universe now, 13 years after selling up. He said Disney took it over and they gave it their vision. That's what happens, he replied. Of course I've moved past it. I mean, I've got a life. I'm building a museum. A museum is harder than making movies. Movies seem pretty dang hard to make, but then let's see. Is there anything else I want to hit on in here? Right here. It says last year Lucas suggested Star Wars new bosses got a lot wrong with the sequel trilogy. Said, I was the one who really knew what Star Wars was, he said, who actually knew the world because there's a lot to it. The Force, for example, nobody understood the Force. When they started other ones, after I sold the company, a lot of the ideas that were in the original sort of got lost. But that's the way it is. You give it up, you give it up. And then it talks about the museum, which, dude, I got to go to this. This is going to be so cool because it talks about the museum and you can see Luke's X-34 land speeder from A New Hope, General Grievous's TSMEU 6 wheel bike, and even the speeder bikes from Return of the Jedi. That would be so cool to see in person. It's no secret that George isn't really necessarily happy with how this whole Disney acquisition went. You know, when he met with Bob Iger, and Bob Iger talks about this in his book, and George Lucas has talked about it in past commentaries and interviews. He met with Bob Iger, and the plan was for Bob Iger and Disney to buy it, and which they did. And George Lucas already had, outlines and treatments for the scripts, and George Lucas was under the impression that they were going to take that and he was going to kind of act as an advisor. But it was never really in writing, and that wasn't really part of the contract. You can't really sell something, and I guess you can, but most people won't take you up on that deal. Is if you sell something, you're selling it, and you're selling all the rights to it, especially when it's, I think what they say, $4 billion, I think was the acquisition cost. So George Lucas has been, upset about it for a while. And when this came out this week, a lot of people, like fans of Star Wars, was like, oh my gosh, how has he just moved on? Like, and I think they're taken out of context. I don't think he's saying he's just moving on from Star Wars. I think what he's saying is he's letting go of, how he used to want to control it, and he was upset that he couldn't control it. But I think he's saying that he's got other things to focus on now, and he can't, like, Star Wars isn't his anymore. It belongs to Disney. And so he's letting go of that. That's what I think. So I don't think he's saying that, like, he wants to move on from Star Wars and erase it from his past and his legacy. I think people are reading it too much. I think he's just saying that he's letting Disney do their thing and he's moving on to other things. So I don't think that, he's just, sitting at home. And I mean, I guess, is that what people want? Do they want George Lucas to be sitting at home and regretting, all of his decisions to sell it? Like, dude's got a life, he's got kids, he's got a wife, he's opening a huge museum that's cost $1 billion. Like, let the dude move on with his life. So let's go on to Twitter, see what the people's thoughts are. Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Oh wait, sorry, I didn't share the screen. My bad. Here's what I went through. This is the meme of Woody Harrelson that's really funny. It says George Lucas watching his work turn to cinders. And then this one was really funny. But yeah, I can't remember what I was going to say. Okay, we'll go through a couple more here. I can't read that. It says, translation, I'm getting too old for this sort of thing. Visionary, he offered to help after the sale. They said, no thank you, and ruined one of the greatest franchises ever. I would be apathetic too. Look how they massacred my boy. The Godfather. Love it. Roddy G says, this is the exact moment George Lucas moved on from Star Wars. He looks like a man that's torn there. Like, he doesn't look like he's confident in his decision. So I am curious if he regrets it, truthfully. But, there was some, like, released, I guess, I don't even remember if it was his outline or if it was, like, insiders that released it, but of his ideas of what he was wanting to do for the sequel trilogy. And to be honest, I'm kind of wondering if Disney saved him from himself a little bit. Like, because now people just view Disney as the bad ones, but what George Lucas, and I can't remember the specifics of what he was going to do, but it was something along the lines of he really was fascinated with, like, the microscopic aspect of Star Wars and the Force and its, like, origins. And he was going to dive into the midichlorians and, like, again, they were going to go into, like, a microscopic world. And I mean, it's George Lucas, so I trust him. I like every movie he's made, but even the prequels, yes. But I don't know. That seems weird. It seems like Disney could have saved his legacy, and they just took on the brunt of that, because that would have been kind of weird if he went into midichlorians. So anyway, that's my thoughts on it. That's people's thoughts. Do you guys think that George Lucas regrets selling Star Wars, or do you think that, he's kind of happy to have it out, and obviously it didn't go the way he planned, but overall, do you think if you go back in time, would he stop himself, or is he happy with what he's doing now? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and we're going to move on here. Spider-Man Brand New Day has been filming for a little bit. I think they're in London or Glasgow now. And set photos have revealed bloody Bruce Banner and a female villain spotted. So again, spoilers here. So this comes to us from comicbookmovie.com. So Spider-Man Brand New Day is back to shooting in public spaces, and that's meant another wave of set photos. We've had a first look at Sadie Sink's character, who is almost certainly the Punisher's sidekick, and some very blurry footage of Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner. Now photographer Ewan Box PhD has confirmed that the Avenger was indeed being taken away in an ambulance. Why would someone who can transform into the Hulk need medical attention? That's a good question. That remains to be seen. However, as you'll see below, Bruce is looking more than a little worse for wear, as he appears to have suffered several wounds to his head and his face. Much has been said about the Spider-Man Brand New Day introducing a Savage Hulk, so perhaps he's unable to transform at this stage. Another photo that's receiving quite a bit of attention on social media featured a mysterious character who many fans are speculating could be the movie's unknown female villain. However, given that this isn't a recognizable actress, we're inclined to believe that she's an extra. I would love it if an extra got all this attention and like all this hype and conspiracy theories around her being like the main villain, and then it was just an extra. It's kind of funny to me. Let's see. It goes on to say, I still don't. Okay. So then it says this appears to be filming, blah, blah, blah. I still don't know. I'm still waiting to hear. Ruffalo claimed last month when he was asked about appearing in Spider-Man Brand New Day. I haven't read the script yet. Well, if it does happen, it would be incredible. I grew up with this, and it changed my life in the best ways. Each time it's a new director, it's a new world, and it's so exciting, the actor continued. There's nothing else like it. A TV show doesn't change its world from one director to the next, and that's what is exciting. So then, here we go. As we can see, we have Mark Ruffalo here, who, as you can see, there's blood on him, and he's not turned into the Hulk. So a question that I have is, when, in past movies, whenever something happens to Mark Ruffalo, or like Bruce Banner when he's not the Hulk, like, does he bleed or does he just turn into the Hulk? Like, I can't remember if he bleeds as Bruce Banner before turning into the Hulk. But then we have some more pictures here, and then we have some pictures of, just random other photos. But I really want to focus our efforts here on Mark Ruffalo. So I guess my question is, is he going to just be coming back as Bruce, or are we getting, Smart Hulk or Professor Hulk, whatever they call him, from Endgame? When Endgame came out, that was like the number one issue that people had with the movie, was they didn't like Professor Hulk, which, I totally understood. They wanted Savage Hulk, and I did too. I like Professor Hulk, Smart Hulk, more, I think, than most people did. I think mainly because I saw that the other Hulk would have been interesting. I don't know how they would have fit him very well into like Endgame, because half the movie is like, really sad and everything. So it would have been interesting. I don't really know what his place would have been in Endgame. So I think Professor Hulk actually was a good decision. But we had, one movie with him. He was in a TV show, which sucked, by the way. So I think it's definitely time to get Savage Hulk back. So my thought is that in this movie, we have Mark Ruffalo, like we have Bruce Banner the whole time. I'm guessing that they're going to give some story as to how he got back to normal Mark Ruffalo or normal Bruce Banner. And then my guess is by the end of the film, Savage Hulk is going to come back. That would be my guess. Or maybe they're going to save Savage Hulk for Secret Wars. But, I guess my main thoughts with this is that I just really want to have the Savage Hulk back. I missed him. Again, in Endgame, it was, I think he needed to be the smart Professor Hulk. But, we did our time with smart Professor Hulk, and now it's time to get our just psychopathic Hulk back. I miss him. So that's really my only thoughts on this. But what do you guys think? Did you guys like Professor Hulk, a Smart Hulk, or are you wanting the OG Savage Hulk back? Let me know your thoughts below, and we are going to keep on moving on. There's big news in the world of acquisitions and studio acquisitions. Seems like everything is starting to consolidate in this space. And we got really big news from Warner Brothers, and this comes to us from The Hollywood Reporter. It says, Warner Bros. Discovery is for sale after all, as multiple parties circle. Goes on to say, sounds like Warner Bros. Discovery is for sale after all. You said that in your title. Why are you saying it again? Amid swirling reports of bidding interest by Paramount Global, the WBD Warner Bros. Discovery Board of Directors has initiative a review of the strategic alternatives to maximize shareholder value. That's the first acknowledgement of a metaphorical for sale sign hanging from the iconic WB water tower. In a press release on Tuesday morning, the Warner Bros. Discovery Board of Directors said it has received unsolicited interest from multiple parties and it's listening. Strategic options include continuing with the previously announced split and spin, a la NBC, Universal, and Versant, a transaction for the entire company, or separate transactions for its Warner Bros. And or Discovery Global businesses. There's even potential for an alternative separation structure that would enable a merger of Warner Bros. And spin-off of Discovery Global to our shareholders. Basically, it's all on the table. We continue to make important strides to position our business to succeed in today's evolving media landscape by advancing our strategic initiatives, returning our studios to industry leadership, and scaling HBO Max globally, David Zaslav, the president and CEO of Warner Bros. Says. Discovery said in a statement, "We took the bold step of preparing to separate the company into two distinct leading media companies, Warner Bros. And Discovery Global, because we strongly believe this was the best path forward." So let's see. It goes on to say, earlier this month, Bloomberg reported that the new Paramount owner, David Ellison, made a $20 per share bid for Warner Bros. Discovery, which was dismissed. It is currently unclear who's making these other unsolicited bids, although David Faber at CNBC mentioned on air Tuesday that Comcast and Netflix have made inquiries. THR has reached out for comment to both of these companies. So that's kind of the main gist of this article. So here's where I'm at with this. I don't think that the question at this point is, will they sell? I think the question is, who are they selling to? It sounds like they have all their ducks in a row to be able to sell. And they're talking about even, splitting it up almost like to sell in parts, to sell Discovery and then to sell Warner Bros., which I think Warner Bros., is going to be the more, appealing buy because they have HBO Max and DC and all that. So it sounds like they're going to be doing this. Now, I have some questions. Who are they going to be selling to, or like who's going to be the contender? It seems like Paramount has made an unsolicited bid for it, and I think it's very possible that they could get it because they have the Ellison family now that just has an insane amount of money. So it's like they could buy it for whatever they want, and maybe that would make sense. But I'm also just wondering who else. My guess as to who is going to really be a contender for purchasing it actually is Apple. The reason I think this is because Apple has proven that they are trying to really get in the streaming and media space. Like they're taking this very seriously. They obviously have Apple TV, or do they call it Apple TV Plus now? I can't remember. But then they also, I believe they made F1. F1 was, I think, an Apple production, and then I think that Warner Bros. Actually distributed it. So I think with the fact that Apple is really trying to get into the movie space, they've been pushing hard. They did that whole thing where they funded Killers of the Flower Moon, and because they wanted it on their platform, they wanted to get into theaters so it could be a contenders for award season. It's been clear that they've been trying to get movies to get into award season. So they're taking this seriously, and the fact that they've already partnered with Warner Bros. On distribution for F1, I think that there could be a really clear partnership right now. I mean, I can't remember Apple's last valuation, but they have an absurd amount of money. And if they're wanting to get in the streaming space, if they're wanting to get into the content space, and you have Warner Bros. Who is looking to sell to, the highest bidder. And a big part with Apple right now is I don't think they typically do their distribution, just because that's a very tricky thing to do. In distribution, that's like the marketing, getting into theaters, all of that. That takes a lot of work and a lot of infrastructure and a lot of relationships with theaters. And Warner Bros. Has that built in. So I think that Apple and Warner Bros. Kind of have the perfect arranged marriage here. So my guess, if I was a betting man, my bet is that Warner Bros. Or that Apple buys Warner Bros. and then makes it their company. So anyway, another question I have on this is, if DC or if Warner Bros. Ends up selling, what happens with DC and specifically James Gunn's DC, like James Gunn as well, like, and Peter Safran? What happens there? Like, obviously they have contracts in place, so it doesn't mean that they're going to get kicked out, but there had been these random reports going around that if they sell to like Paramount, that, you know, an insider was saying that they're going to be getting rid of James Gunn and Peter Safran and putting someone else in place for them and take the DCU in a different direction. I have no idea if that's true or not, but it does make you wonder, especially with these new reports coming out of Superman wasn't actually, you know, profitable or as profitable as we originally thought. You know, I wonder if someone would try to, whether it's, you know, Ellison, Paramount, or people at Apple. I'm curious to see if they would try to take the DCU, because, you know, that's one of their biggest assets. Try to take that in a different direction or not. You know, if they went with or if Universal bought them, which is, I believe, is Comcast. Another thought I had is, I wonder what that would do for like the parks, like the Universal Park. Like, would they get just a bunch of DC stuff? Would they be able to use it? I think that like Six Flags, I think some other ones have like specific licensing for like Batman rides and stuff. But I am interested. If Universal would be able to get like all of DC's stuff and start doing, you know, rides and things like that. But now the last and obvious thought is, what if Disney gets it? I don't want Disney to get it. I want to keep them separate. But, you know, the nerd in me kind of does like the idea of Disney buying Warner Bros., because then they would have DC. And as all the nerds out there know, that means they could do a Justice League versus the Avengers, or DC versus Marvel, which I don't think I would like, especially right now, because I don't like where the DC is right, or DCU is right now. So I wouldn't really like that right now. But that'd be interesting. So who knows? Who knows what's happening? But it looks like it's gonna be a done deal. It looks like they're gonna sell. So my question to you guys is, who would you like to see Warner Bros? Would you like to see it be a Universal and then potentially get, you know, all the rights to have DC stuff in the parks? Would you like to see it be Paramount and, you know, have the Ellisons in charge of it? Would you like it to be Apple, and then Apple becomes, you know, a dominant player in this space? Or would you like it to be Disney, and maybe we can get our dreams of DCU / Marvel, you know, in a movie together? So let me know your thoughts below, and we are going to move on to our next topic. Jim Carrey, you know, he hasn't been in a movie for quite a long time. Well, he's been in the Sonic movies, but other than that, I think it's been like since 2016 or something since he's been in a movie besides Sonic. Well, that's all changing now, because according to Variety, Jim Carrey is in talks to star in the Jetsons live action movie. So, you know, that's a live action movie I haven't thought of, quite frankly, but who knows? Goes on to say Jim Carrey is in talks to lead a Jetsons movie at Warner Bros. Pictures. Sorry, I keep getting something in my throat. Warner Bros. Pictures with Colin Trevorrow and talks to direct, Variety has confirmed. Trevorrow, who last helmed Jurassic World Dominion, and Joe Epstein are in talks to write the screenplay. No information on the storyline was immediately available. The last Jetsons feature film was in 1990, Animated Jetsons the Movie, a live-action version of the familiar family animated property, which first aired in 1962, has been attempted numerous times over the years. The series was revived several times in the 1970s and 80s, making the typical nuclear family that happens to live in outer space familiar to several generations of viewers. The story revolves around George and Jane Jetson, their children Judy and Elroy, and dog Astro. I remember watching Astro growing up. I loved Astro. He was the best. The family lives in the space-age style Orbit City and enjoys innovations that were considered wildly futuristic at the time, such as video chat, FaceTime, we got that now, domestic robots, basically have that, and even flying cars that are part of our about to be daily life 60 years later. Among the unfulfilled attempts to bring the Jetsons to screen were a 2003 version directed by Adam Shankman, 2007 CGI version directed by Robert Rodriguez. Oh, that's interesting. Love Robert Rodriguez. And a 2017 animated version. Carrey most recently has appeared in Sonic the Hedgehog, blah, 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 blah. And that's kind of the main parts there. So my thoughts on this are, number one, I love Jim Carrey. Anything that he's going to want to do, I will watch. I think he's a great comedic actor. I think he's actually a great dramatic actor that people don't give him enough credit for. So, I'm down for that. Colin Trevorrow, big director, did, I think, all the Jurassic World movies. And then he was going to do that Star Wars Episode 9 that was, I think, titled Duel of the Fates, before it went to J.J. Abrams again in Rise of Skywalker. Again, he was another one that left due to, what do they call it? The creative differences, I think is what they called it. So, it sounds interesting. I think I'm curious on what the tone would be, though, because, the comic booky or the cartoon was very lighthearted and fun, and Trevorrow does more like big blockbusters and dramatic things. So the tone of it, I'm wondering, would it be a comedy? Would it be, a PG movie? I don't know. I'm having a hard time wrapping around my mind around what the tone would be of it. So another question I have with it is, how is it possible to make something like this? Because, this is IP. Most people my age probably haven't even heard of the Jetsons. Obviously adults do, but the intellectual property for this and just the brand itself isn't huge. And if you're making something that is, in a futuristic 60s, that just seems like it's going to cost a lot of money. So how would they possibly make this on a modest budget? And I don't know. I don't know if they could, to be honest. So this does seem like something that, could be a pretty big flop. Not that it would be. I mean, there's been surprises all the time. But it's hard for me to wrap my head around this being, a low to mid-budget movie. It seems like, just by the nature of what it is, it would be large budget. I'm just not sure that the brand is big enough. So that's kind of my main concerns. Again, this is another one of those projects that seems like if they did a good reboot and an animated version, I think that could be really cool. Like, I think an animated version would actually do really good, like a low to mid-budget animated movie. I think that would actually make more sense than this. Again, I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around the tone. But then again, I love Jim Carrey, and most people do. And I do think that if a name brings people out to the theaters, I do think Jim Carrey's name does that. So anyway, that's my thoughts on it. What are your guys' thoughts? Are you excited for this? Are you excited that we're getting Jim Carrey back in something that isn't the Sonic movies? Let me know your thoughts below, and we are going to move on to our final topic. So this comes to us from the playlist. It says, Kennedy Michael Fassbender to lead Netflix series exploring Kennedy family from Another Round, director Thomas Vinterberg, yeah. And I've never seen Another Round, which I've heard it's amazing, so I want to watch it. That was the one that had Galen Erso, I think, in it. Whoever his name, I can't remember his name. So it goes on to say, we've learned today that Michael Fassbender and Oscar-winning Danish filmmaker Thomas Vinterberg has been tapped by Netflix for a new series, Kennedy, exploring the Kennedy family in an 8-episode family drama with Fassbender set to play Joe Kennedy. Kennedy will explore the triumphs and tragedies of the Kennedy family and hails from showrunner and executive producer Sam Shaw, and is based on the Frederick Logvall novel JFK Coming of Age in the American Century 1917 to 1956. I'm really excited about this, by the way. It goes on to say, if you're not familiar with the patriarch of the family, Joe Kennedy Sr. was a businessman and America's ambassador to the United Kingdom. He was obviously entrenched in the world of American politics, alongside being a pivotal figure during the era of Prohibition, dealing with criminal syndicates as he profited from the bootlegging industry when the sale of alcohol was outlawed by the federal government. Of course, his sons and grandchildren would follow in his political footsteps and surpass him, as John F. Kennedy would become president of the United States, the first Catholic president, and like his younger brother, Robert Kennedy Sr., was a beloved politician that became victim of assassination. So, goes on to talk more about the Kennedys and so the producing team. Eric Roth, who did like Forrest Gump, and he's a big time screenwriter. He's involved in it. So, yeah, I mean, let's see. It goes on. I'm thrilled to be able to explore the saga of a family and a world in transition with Eric Roth, Thomas Vinterberg, and our incredible band of artists and partners at a moment when our past feels urgently present. So that's what it is. I don't really have like too many thoughts on this other than I love anything that has to do with the Kennedys because their family history and just everything that happened with that family is so insane. And that family, that dynasty of the family, I think that's going to be really fascinating to go into. And it seems like they're focusing more on Joe, the dad. Like there's been plenty of stuff done on, JFK and his brother Robert Kennedy and like Jack Kennedy. But Joe, who I believe is John F. Kennedy's dad, is going to focus on him, which I think will be a really fascinating take. Because I think that dude was I think he's very much an enigma. I think he was like hard to understand, and people didn't know if he's a good guy or bad guy. So I think that this will be really good. My second point is Michael Fassbender. He is one of my favorite actors, and I think he's one of the most underrated actors working today, though I don't think he's doing a lot now. I remember hearing that he was like trying to focus on a career in like racing cars or something like that, maybe even like trying to get to F1. But I'm so pumped that he's coming back. Michael Fassbender, he played Steve Jobs, and I think it was called Steve Jobs. Jobs was Ashton Kutcher movie, I believe, and then Steve Jobs was the one with Michael Fassbender. And I thought that was one of the greatest performances I had ever seen. I mean, the way that he became and characterized Steve Jobs, whether it was accurate or not, I have no idea, like, to who Steve Jobs actually was. But it was just, you have Michael Fassbender as, like, the person and the actor, and, like, you see him in interviews and other stuff. He was just completely different as a Steve Jobs guy. And I was like, dude, this is, like, he's just, like, doing a breathtaking performance. And I don't think he even got any nominations in the Oscars or really anything. And I always thought that was a shame because I thought it was such a underappreciated performance. So I'm super excited about this. I can't wait to watch it. I don't know when it's coming out, but maybe, did they say 2026? I mean, things like this, it shouldn't take too long to film. So my guess is that it'll be 2026's. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. What do you guys think? Are you excited about this? Do you think that a series exploring the Kennedys and Joe Kennedy will do well? And are you excited that Michael Fassbender is playing that role? Let me know your thoughts in the comments and chat. And that'll do it for today's episode. So I think we hit out 7 topics today. Kept it relatively short in length. Make sure to follow on all channels. We're on TikTok if you want to watch on Spotify, YouTube, and then we're on Instagram too, and then we're on Twitter. So any way you want to find us, you can find us there. So thanks for tuning in. If you made it to the end, I greatly appreciate it. Take care and God bless.